Happy Easter! Christ is risen. Christ is risen indeed. This morning we have found our way through all the wilderness and we're at Sunday morning. And this is Easter. And first one that we've done in with social distancing, and the first one that we have done online. So here we go. Well, today, as you know, is Easter. And so I'm going to read for you a poem from our Lenten curriculum. This is called Easter Sunday. The wilderness is the birthplace of joy. And this is by Sarah R. I used to know the wilderness only as pain. A land without food, a land without water. But you rain down manna and even water flows in your desert. I used to think the wilderness was total isolation, but the Israelites had each other. And you had the stars in the sky. So then I thought the wilderness must be time wasted. 40 years of circles, 40 years of wandering. But then I realized each step is a step, and maybe there's growth in that. So then I concluded that the wilderness must be lonely places. The woman in her well, the blind man in his gate, Martha and her kitchen, Peter and his fire. But then you showed up in each of those places, to each of those faces. So now I wonder, what if the wilderness is the birthplace of creation? What if the wilderness is where call begins? What if the wilderness is where joy is birthed? What if, between the dirt and the sky and that wide orange horizon, the wilderness is where we find you? Today our scripture is in Matthew 28. After the Sabbath, as the first day of the week was dawning, Mary of Magdala came with Mary to inspect the tomb. Suddenly, there was a severe earthquake, and an angel of God descended from heaven, rolled back the stone, and sat on it. The angel's appearance was like lightning, with garments of white as snow. The guard shook with fear and fell down as though they were dead. And then the angel spoke, addressing the women. "Don't be afraid. I know you are looking for Jesus the crucified, who is no longer here. Jesus has been raised, exactly as it was foretold. Come and see the burial place. Then go quickly and tell the disciples that Jesus has risen from the dead and now goes ahead of you to Galilee. You will see Jesus there. That is the message I have for you." And the women hurried away from the tomb with awe and great joy and ran to carry the good news to the disciples. And suddenly Jesus stood before them, said, "Shalom." The women came up and looked at his feet and worshipped him. Bowed at his feet and worshipped him. At this, Jesus said to them, "Don't be afraid. Go tell the disciples to go to Galilee, where they will see me." So we continue to be in our wilderness, which is, feels kind of problematic for Easter Sunday morning. But the church calendar is not always in sync with what God is doing in and among and through us. And so this morning, we are not out of our personal wildernesses or our communal wilderness. So I think the lessons from the wilderness that we have been going over and over again, really leads us to those questions that were in the poem. What if this wilderness, or the wilderness we find ourselves in at any time, is the birthplace of creation? What if love is is wanting to be born in you in new ways. What if? What if the wilderness is where our callings began? When we finally wrestle with ourselves and our own egos and our own agenda and our own fears, and finally hear God calling us to whatever it is that God might be calling you. And what if? What if the wilderness is where joy is born? What if? I try to imagine what it's going to feel like when we're allowed to finally go about our lives, hopefully in a slightly different way, with a greater appreciation for each other, for the wealth that we have in our lives, and the community, the rich community. Maybe, just maybe, a deeper joy will come out of all of this. And there will be mourning over loss and sickness and fear, definitely. But there may also be some joy in this for us, somewhere down the line. That's kind of the tricky way in which the gospel works. That's kind of the tricky way that God works within us, is that sometimes we have to be reduced to just the very essence of ourselves before God will plunge ahead, to help us to plunge ahead and to go where we were afraid to go before, or where we couldn't even see. Perhaps we'll come out of this with a deeper, deeper relationship with each other and with God. Happy Easter. Christ is risen. Christ is risen indeed.